Mr. President.
Senator from Nebraska.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to voice my support for Brian Buescher, President Trump's nominee to serve on the United States District Court for the District of Nebraska. Near the end of 2017, both myself and Senator Sass were given notice that Chief Judge Lori Smithcamp would assume senior status on Nebraska's federal bench. Many people may not know this, but the case docket for the U.S. District Court for the District of Nebraska is among the busiest dockets in the nation. In recent years, the district has carried some of the highest per-judge criminal caseloads in the country, which surpasses judicial districts that include New York City, Chicago, and Los Angeles. This is why it is critical to both Nebraska and our nation that the Senate delivers an exceptional judge to fill this vacancy without further delay. In this spirit, both Senator Sass and I worked quickly to begin the open application process. Nebraska is the proud home of many brilliant legal minds, and we thoroughly studied every application and interviewed qualified candidates. After an extensive search spanning the course of a few months, Senator Sass and I came to a conclusion. We would recommend to President Trump that Brian Buescher be nominated as the next judge on Nebraska's federal district court. Mr. Buescher is a proud husband and father of 5 children who have been his biggest cheerleaders throughout this long confirmation process. He grew up in Clay County, Nebraska. There, he learned the importance of hard work at a young age on his family farm, where they raised corn, milo, wheat, alfalfa, hogs, and cattle. It is also from this upbringing that he developed a keen appreciation for how the law directly affects the everyday lives of Americans, and even more so for those who live and work in America's heartland. After receiving his undergraduate degree from the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, Brian was accepted into law school at Georgetown University. He thrived both in and out of the classroom. He was editor-in-chief of the Georgetown Journal of Ethics and vice president of the Student Bar Association. Mr. Buescher is currently a partner at Nebraska's largest law firm, Kutak Rock. He is chairman of the firm's agribusiness litigation team and oversees large, complex commercial litigation, which includes environmental law, food law, real estate, class actions, product liability, and banking. He has gained invaluable experience as a litigator, and his resume speaks for itself. His success includes favorable rulings in cases heard by Nebraska and Iowa's state and federal courts, the U.S. Court of Federal Claims, and the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the District of Nebraska. Time after time, case after case, he has demonstrated his commitment to upholding the Constitution and the rule of law. In 2017, the American Agricultural Law Firm awarded him the Excellence in Agricultural Law Award for private practice. The American Bar Association rated Mr. Buescher as qualified by an overwhelming majority. His 20 years of litigation experience has unquestionably prepared him for his next life chapter as a United States District Court judge. Nebraska's former Secretary of State, John Gale, recruited Brian to serve on the Nebraska State Records Board. Secretary Gale noted that, quote, Mr. Buescher reflects the highest level for the qualities needed for a district judge, ranging from intelligence, integrity, professionalism, attentiveness, character, and skillful articulation to a deep understanding of the rules and procedures of the courtroom, close quote. While everyone who has worked with him praises his legal acumen, Those who know him on a personal level speak to his integrity and his character. One of his friends from college, who has known Brian for a quarter of a century, praised his commitment to serving the community and his qualities as a husband and a father. His friend concluded, "I can say with complete confidence what kind of person Brian is, and that there is nothing that should give you hesitation about his confirmation." By all accounts, Brian Buescher has enthusiastic support in Nebraska for his superb legal work and fair-minded disposition. I was proud to introduce Mr. Buescher at his confirmation hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee last November. I sincerely hoped that my Democrat colleagues would see Mr. Buescher for who he was, a sharp legal mind and a man of high character. However, my Democrat friends on the Judiciary Committee deployed unjust, bigoted attacks instead of using reason and open-mindedness. They could not criticize his solid record, nor his judicial philosophy, so they reverted to attacking his personal religious beliefs. Both the junior senator from California and the junior senator from Hawaii questioned Mr. Buescher's membership in the Knights of Columbus. For anyone who may be unaware, the Knights of Columbus is not a radical interest group. It's not political at all. The Knights of Columbus is the world's largest Roman Catholic fraternal organization. Their motto is "In service to one, service to all," and they are founded on the core principles of charity, unity, and patriotism. Over the last decade, the Knights of Columbus have donated $1.1 billion to charities and performed more than 68 million hours of volunteer service. In 2017 alone, local councils donated and distributed over 105,000 winter coats for underprivileged children through their Coats for Kids program. They have raised more than $382 million in the past 3 decades to help groups and programs that support the intellectually and physically disabled. Whether it's providing food and shelter for refugees, rebuilding homes for families that are struck by natural disasters, volunteering at a veterans medical facility, or simply a pancake feed to raise money for local schools, the acts of charity and kindness of the Knights of Columbus is truly inspiring. That is why I was shocked to hear Mr. Buescher received a letter from the junior senator from Hawaii following his confirmation hearing that suggested he leave the Knights of Columbus to avoid an appearance of bias. The notion that being a Knights of Columbus member is disqualifying to serve on the federal bench is disturbing on its own. But holding religious tests for our judicial nominees blatantly ignores the Constitution, and it tears the fabric of our core American values, the freedom to worship and pray as we choose. Fortunately, the Senate passed a resolution earlier this year that condemned unconstitutional religious tests for nominees. President Kennedy endured anti-Catholic attacks throughout his 1960 campaign, and for me, it was exceptionally troubling to see that rhetoric return to the Senate in 2019. Now we'll have another chance here in the Senate to send a clear message that we share our founding fathers' contempt for religious tests for public office by confirming Brian Buescher to the federal bench. In closing, I think it is important to reiterate that reverence for our Constitution and our laws is part of what it means to be an American. My friend Peggy Noonan characterized this best a few weeks ago in her Wall Street Journal column. She described a young politician in 1838 who gave a speech to a Midwestern youth group about public policy and the political events of the time. The last of our founding fathers had recently died, and in their absence, our nation felt lost. The founders were a visual representation of American values and modeled our first principles in their behavior. After their death, their core values were being forgotten, and mob rule began to rise, threatening our republic. The young politician had a solution. Our people should transfer reverence for our founders to reverence for the laws that they created. He said, "Only reverence for our Constitution and laws will protect our nation's political institution and retain the attachment of the people." The speaker that day in 1838 was Abraham Lincoln, who was 28 years old at the time. He understood the delicate nature of our laws. When our laws collapse, everything else in our nation can crumble with it. I believe that to love our country, we must respect our Constitution and apply the laws fairly to all. When we do so, we not only honor our past, we protect the future generations of this great nation. We can do that here in the Senate by appointing exceptional judges to the federal bench. And I can say with great confidence that Mr. Buescher will be one of them. He is a well-qualified nominee and a man who possesses high ethical standards. I have no doubt that Brian will honor his family, our state, and our nation with his service on the United States District Court for the District of Nebraska. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to vote in favor of his nomination. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.